We are skipping chapter 2. I had an email that asked a question regarding that. Chapter 2 is not technically covered in all of the modules, but at the end of the class, we will circle back. And what I'm going to do is offer that as an extra credit option. And so if you are interested in completing the extra credit when we get to the end of the term, then we will, have that as an option in to review chapter 2 and complete one of the quizzes that it goes along with it. We are going to proceed now with chapter 3, and chapter 3 is covering culture and interpersonal communication. And the things that we're going to discuss related to that are culture and communication, culture values and norms, co-cultures and communication, codes and culture, and developing intercultural communication competency. These are the learning objectives that we will cover in chapter 3. We will explain the relationship between intercultural and interpersonal dimensions of communication. We will describe 5 key values that help shape a culture's communication norms, recognize the range of co-cultures in today's society and how co-cultures can affect interpersonal communication, explain the factors that shape a culture's verbal and nonverbal codes, and then we will identify the attitudes, knowledge, and skills required for intercultural communication competency. To begin, culture and co-culture. So what is culture? Culture comprises of language, values, beliefs, traditions, and customs that are shared and learned. Culture is a matter of perception and definition. On this graph right here, we have a percentage of foreign-born population that is residing in the US, and then it is the years that they were born in at the bottom. And the countries that are included are Europe and Canada, South and East Asia, other Latin American countries, and Mexico. So obviously you can see how diverse the United States is, and we're kind of a melting pot and a mix of a lot of different people from multiple cultures. When we look at culture and co-cultures, first, the in-groups are groups for which we identify. So these are groups that we feel that we are part of. And then out-groups are groups that we view as different than our own in-group. Social identity is part of the self-concept that is based on membership within these groups. Co-culture involves the perception of membership in a group that is part of an encompassing culture. Examples of this can include age, race, ethnicity, geographic region, and so on. Members of co-cultures develop unique patterns of communication and connection within their community. In co-cultural theory, there are 3 strategies for communicators. We have assimilation, accommodation, and separation. And like the last chapter, I'm going to skip any of the videos or discussion questions that are featured. We will circle back and go through a few of these within class and discuss them further so we can have a class discussion. Intercultural communication describes the process that occurs when members of 2 or more cultures or co-cultures exchange messages in a manner that is influenced by different cultural perceptions and symbol systems that can be both verbal or nonverbal. So rather than classifying some exchanges as intercultural and others as free-form cultural influences, it is more accurate to talk about the degree of cultural significance. And then we look at salience. Salience is the weight that is attached to a particular person or phenomenon within these exchanges that we have. And this elaborates on it further. So degrees of cultural significance and the salience that we have among that. In this example, this graph provided below, it's looking at interpersonal and intercultural dimensions of communication. So to illustrate the relationship between interpersonal and intercultural communication, the model presents the interaction between the 2 types to show that some interpersonal transactions have no cultural elements, while other transactions are almost exclusively intercultural and without personal dimensions. As listed in this graph, you can see on this area here is interpersonal significance, low and high, And then down here, we have intercultural significance in the low and high. And then among these examples, at the top here, high, we have parent and child discussing their changing relationship. And then low down here, English speaker caller requests directory assistance from English speaking telephone operator. Right here in the middle, we have over time, able-bodied and disabled fellow employees develop ways to work effectively together. At the high of this, we have spouses from different cultural backgrounds develop a mutual understanding. And then down here, for the low on this axis and the high, we have traveler unintentionally violates customs of a culture that she or he does not understand. In this next graph, we have the USA in this circle, and then in the middle is similarities between them, and then this is more formal cultures. On the bottom, we have low and high on the formality scale. So intercultural differences as generalizations, culture differences are numerous as there are a number of ways to communicate within each of these cultures. Sometimes there are greater differences within cultures than between cultures. Cultural values and norms. Next, we're going to look at the 5 subtle yet vital categories of values and norms that shape the ways members of a culture communicate. First, we have low versus high context. When we look at low context cultures, we use language primarily to express thoughts, feelings, and ideas as directly as possible. While in a high context culture, we rely heavily on subtle, often nonverbal cues that are meant to maintain social harmony. When we look at individualistic culture, this is viewed as their primary responsibility as helping themselves, as opposed to members of a collectivist culture feel loyalties and obligations to their in-group within their culture. We have power distance. Power distance describes the degree to which members of a society accept an unequal distribution of power. When you have a low power distance culture, they believe in minimizing distinctions between social classes. When you have a high power distance culture, they expect children to obey parents and authority figures. They also believe that power can come with age. This is related to when you hear respect your elders, or people very value the opinion of their grandparents or their parents, and it's expected that you should respect what they say and obey what they say within that culture. Uncertainty avoidance is a term that is used to reflect the degree to which members of a culture feel threatened by ambiguous situations and how much they try to avoid them. Some cultures may feel really uncomfortable with uncertainty and really go out of their way to be in situations that are unknown, or they don't know what to expect from that situation. Achievement versus nurturing cultures. In an achievement culture, they will place a really high value on material success, and they will tend to focus on the task at hand. Whereas in a nurturing culture, they tend to regard the support of a relationship as a very important goal, and there's more emphasis that is placed on that. When you consider the United States and start looking at some of these cultural values and norms compared to our culture, so we tend to be more individualistic. We usually put a lot more emphasis on what you are doing as a person, how you achieve, opposed in a collectivist culture where they are more concerned with everybody in the group. Next, we start to look at co-cultures and communication, and we start with race and ethnicity. So race is a category created to explain differences between people by their ancestry. So race has no biological basis. It is a little use in explain individual differences among the culture. Ethnicity is the degree to which a person identifies with a group. It's usually based on their nationality, culture, or some other unifying perspective. Intersectionality describes the interplay of social categories, gender, race, socioeconomic status, and sexual orientation. When you look at gender identity and sexual orientation within LGBTQ, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer, they can decide whether and how to disclose their gender identity or their sexual orientation. And this can be challenging, and they try to find a community that is supportive to try to help them throughout this process. Being open about your sexual preferences can provide a sense of being authentic with others and belonging to this supportive community. But on the opposite, disclosure may be risky because people might be afraid that they're going to be judged or shocked by the revelation within their family or within the groups that they surround themselves. Next, we look at age or generation. Age-related communication reflects culture as much as biology. We learn how to do various things within the ages and how to play within that role. Modern Western culture is very honoring of youth, and attitudes about aging are more negative than positive. And often people who believe negative things about older adults may have trouble communicating with them. They're also less likely to interact with them, and they might even use patronizing speech when they do have interactions. And this can result in communication challenges that arise when different generations have to work together in work or different situations. Then we have disabilities. So several strategies have been identified for fitting in at the workplace. Assimilation is adapting and conforming to the dominant non-disabled group. Accommodation is acknowledging your disability and asking for ways that it can be accommodating or accommodated to. This approach can also include educating other people and trying to dispel misperceptions about having disabilities. Belonging to a community of similar people can be rewarding and helpful, and we should treat disability as one feature, but not as a defining characteristic of others. I personally have mentioned that I have chronic illnesses and technically invisible disabilities. So I have found for me in the workplace, especially, I am very open about my health and how it's a priority and the boundaries that I need within that environment. And I think that providing accommodations based on that is especially helpful. For example, for me, working remotely helps me, and having a flexible work environment that is understanding when I have to go to the doctor or take medication or get shots or plan surgeries so that I can still complete my work and also prioritize my health without getting burnt out. And I do not look at disability as a weakness. I actually think it's a strength because it gives me a different perception. It allows me to adapt to changes easily and deal with difficult situations. And I also think it makes me more of an empathetic person and understanding of other people's situations. Socioeconomic status is another area that we look at. Social class can have a major impact on how people communicate. In the US, people generally identify themselves as working class, middle class, or upper class. And then we also have first generation college students. So many of you may fall within this group. And they might feel a strain of living in two different worlds simultaneously. Maybe they are dealing with pressure from their family to do well since they are the first person who's gone to college. Maybe they have people in their family or within their cultural group who are resistant to college or not as supportive about it. And so this can really cause strain on people when they're a first generation college student, or maybe they just have more difficulty navigating the college space because they don't have anybody to help them or guide them through the process. Next, we look at codes and culture, and we start with verbal codes. The world's languages show remarkable similarities, but there are also significant differences in the verbal codes that exist within and between a language group. People feel most confident and comfortable when they communicate in their native language with people in their own culture. There are three types of cultural differences in verbal style that have been identified. We have language. Well, first we address the language and identity, and then we have direct versus indirect, elaborate versus succinct, and formal versus informal. And code switching occurs when communicators adapt their manner of speaking when they change context. This is a form of communication competence that increases chances of achieving these goals. Code switching does not require rejecting your own heritage, and it is more like a bilingual ability that you develop. In nonverbal codes, although humans share many elements of nonverbal communication, the range of differences in nonverbal behavior is tremendous. Then we look at microaggressions. Microaggressions involve communicating disrespect and disdain through subtle verbal or nonverbal displays. These can often be related to racial discrimination, and they may be communicated by saying something like, "I didn't know your people acted that way," or if a student calls a test gay as a negative or derogatory term within that instance. Generally, this says more about the person who is, snubbing that particular situation than the group of people that they're trying to offend. Competent communicators strive for greater awareness and accountability related to microaggressions and try to avoid them. This video is a good example of microaggressions that you can watch related to P&G. So how do we develop and become competent in intercultural communication? First, we want to pay attention to our motivation and attitude and our desire to communicate successfully with strangers and to actively try to talk and get along with people from other cultures. Next, we want to look at your tolerance for ambiguity and the concerns, the level of uncertainty when encountering communicators from different cultures. Competent intercultural communicators must accept and welcome ambiguous situations. So it can be difficult sometimes to deal with things that are unknown or people are unknown, but that's kind of where you really have to try to put yourself outside your comfort zone and actively meet new people who have a different culture or a different perception than your own. So this kind of goes along with being open-minded. When you're open-minded, you are free of ethnocentric ideas, and this is an attitude that your culture is superior to others, and you are not prejudiced or unfairly biased and intolerant towards others who belong to a group or culture that's different than your own. You also develop knowledge and skills, which requires being mindful. When you're mindful, you're aware of your own behavior and that of other people. And if you are mindless, you are the opposite. You are basically oblivious to how you behave, and you are not aware of how you can be offensive to other people. And that can cause a lot of issues or communication, where you're not going to be able to communicate well with other people because you're not aware of how you're acting and how it can be offensive to someone else. And then you have to be patient and you have to persevere. So this is something that you just have to develop and work on. Try to move from culture shock to adaptation. So instead of trying to only focus on how everything is different than your own culture and being shocked by everything that's occurring, try to be more open-minded and adapt to how people are different than you and accept that and be open to learn about it instead of just judging and thinking that your culture is superior. So this is another example video that you can reference that's related to this too. So what did we cover throughout this chapter? We looked at the relationship between intercultural and interpersonal dimensions of communication. We described 5 key values that help shape a culture's communication norms. We recognized the range of co-cultures in today's society and how co-culture factors can affect interpersonal communication. We explained the factors that shape a culture's verbal and nonverbal codes, and then we identified the attitudes, knowledge, and skills that are required for intercultural communication competency. That is all for this chapter. You need to complete chapter 3 quiz by the end of the week. You need to also respond to 2 people on the discussion board if you have not done so already. And make sure that you have read and reviewed the content that is covered in chapter 3 through this video, and then the other resources that are provided online. Within the modules, each of them have some videos that show examples that demonstrate the content that we're covering. I would highly recommend that you review those, as I think that they provide a lot of good examples to help you understand the content. And then I will see you in our next meeting, where we will go through some more discussion boards and review the content that's coming up. If you have any other questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you. Have a good day.